It's no secret that over the years, Halo games have had some of the best campaign modes across all of gaming. Okay, with the exception of Halo 5. Halo 5's campaign was terrible. The Halo games have had numerous beautiful campaign missions designed to encapsulate you in the story of Halo. However, some of those missions, while beautiful, are designed to cause you a ton of pain. In this video, we are going to be looking at the hardest missions across all of the Halo games and analyzing what makes them so difficult. Now in this video, we are only going to be analyzing missions in Halo on Legendary difficulty, that is Halo's hardest difficulty. In all of the Halo games, Legendary difficulty means that the enemies have the best health, the best damage, and the best AI. But of course, not every Halo game was created equally, and we're going to be going over that during this video. Later on in the video, we'll also be talking about the sponsor of this video, Audible. If you'd like to get started with a free 30-day trial of Audible, you can click the link in the description or the card in the top right of your video, but we'll talk about that fully later on. So grab your Scarab gun and get ready to start blasting everything in your general vicinity, because we're going to be talking about the hardest Halo missions of all time. This video is going to go over some of the hardest missions across all of the Halo games. And when I first set out to make this video, that idea caused some problems for me. Other content creators on YouTube have made plenty of videos about the top 5, top 10, even top 25 hardest Halo missions of all time. And I think these videos are good, but I think they're missing something because of their format. You see, when you set out to make a video that is a top 5 or a top 10 or even a top 25, you're going to have a lot of missions that, yes, make the list, but are essentially an insignificant placing. Top 5s and top 10s can help us to organize information. We can create pretty accurate lists of the hardest Halo missions across all of the Halo games with these sort of videos. But I think doing a top 5 or a top 10 does a disservice to the hardest Halo missions across all of the Halo games. Because in my opinion, when you're talking about the hardest missions, it really only comes down to 3. And those 3 missions are definitively the 3 hardest missions across all of the Halo games. So without further ado, let's get started.
We must collect the index before we can activate the installation.
In Halo Combat Evolved, the mission The Library, for most of us, was our first introduction to the true ferocity of the Flood. This isn't the first mission where we meet the Flood, but it is the first mission across all of the Halo games where the Flood is your only enemy. And the Library teaches you very quickly that the Flood fight nothing like the other enemies in Halo. Common tactics that you've been getting used to for the entirety of Halo Combat Evolved are thrown out the window when you play on the Library. The interesting thing here is that the Flood in Halo Combat Evolved are generally weak creatures. There are no shielded Flood in the game. There are no Flood that have excess amount of health. Most Flood that you fight in this mission die with just a couple of bullets from most guns. And with that, you'd think that the Flood would be a fairly easy enemy to fight. But this mission and the Flood are designed to overwhelm you, and they will in this mission. Part of the reason is that Flood will literally spawn out of the walls in this mission. You never know exactly where the Flood are going to spawn. On Legendary difficulty, Halo Combat Evolved likes to spawn enemies behind you, and in the Library they do this very often. This means that during the mission your position has to constantly change or you will easily be overwhelmed. You have to make sure that you're always fighting the Flood from one single direction, and when they're constantly spawning all around you, it's very difficult. This mission is also incredibly long. It's an odyssey of Flood killing and gory remains. The repetitive nature of the mission also tends to get you lost, and when you get lost or turned around, the Flood of course will just overwhelm you. This mission will tire you out. By the end of it, you'll be done with killing Flood. You'll hope that you never see another Flood again because the mission is just so relentless. But this honestly is nothing out of the ordinary for Halo Combat Evolved. A lot of the missions are very expansive, very large, and even to this day, I still get lost in some of them, especially when you play this mission on the classic graphics. The hallways, the floors, they all appear to be the same color, and when you're fighting and spinning and turning and looking for Flood that are spawning all around you, it's easy to get turned around. The first time I ever streamed this mission mission on Legendary, I had my capture card set a little bit low in the brightness. This made the screen insanely dim, like what you're seeing now. And may Master Chief, peace be upon him, have mercy on your soul if you make this mistake as well. Fortunately, like any mission in Halo, like any game of all time, this has some strategies that you can implement to give yourself a better advantage against the Flood. The shotgun in Halo Combat Evolved is easily one of the greatest weapons in the game for fighting Flood. Mostly because the shotgun has such a high ammo capacity, you can fit 12 shotgun shells into the barrel of the shotgun before you need to reload. However, due to the high degree of difficulty in this mission, even the legendary Halo Combat Evolved shotgun will not save you every single time when you're playing on the library. Yes, like any mission in Halo, there are some easy tricks, like this one where you can just sit in this corner and for this entire section, none of the Flood will even try to kill you. And you can also skip entire sections of this mission if you do a nice grenade jump in the correct spot. But just because there's a couple of tricks that can move you a little bit faster through this mission does not mean this mission is easy in any way. When it comes down to it, it's you against an almost infinite amount of Flood. And sometimes all the Halo skill in the world can't save you from that.
I'll round up our survivors, fall back to the dawn. Arbiter will do the same with the elites. Cortana's in there somewhere.
Now, I've already made a video on why Cortana is one of the hardest missions across all of the Halo games. Like the library, Cortana also tests your skill against the Flood. The 9th mission in Halo 3, Cortana, is a 100% Flood-based mission. You won't fight anything that isn't already dead. The Flood in Halo 3 are incredibly diverse. There are tons of different types of Flood that you will have to fight while going through this mission. Flood will shoot you from the air, they will come at you directly, they will be all around the floor. Most of the areas in this mission are small enclosed hallways, which means you have to go toe-to-toe with the Flood in order to succeed. Now, whether that means battling it out with your shotgun, slicing through with your sword, or trying to avoid enemies altogether, it is still a difficult mission. And it can be incredibly frustrating to deal with all of these enemies because, like the classic Flood, they are relentless. However, the Flood in this mission are also incredibly diverse. In this mission, you will fight every type of Flood in Halo: infected Marines, infected brutes, the shielded infected elites, Hunter Flood that can take an almost unlimited amount of damage, the Flood Stalker forms which will shoot you from a distance, which are probably one of the most annoying things in all of the Halo games. Also, they just tend to give you nightmares. You'll fight Flood Infector forms, Flood Popper forms, and all of this equals a very difficult mission. And it doesn't help that through this mission, you are alone, just as the Master Chief. Not to rag on the Master Chief, he's a pretty strong guy, I'll give him his props where it's due. But throughout different missions in Halo 3, you get used to fighting with the Arbiter by your side. The Arbiter is an incredibly strong companion that you have throughout all of Halo 3, except for this mission. The Arbiter is very strong, very consistent, does a lot of damage, and can't actually physically die. And you really feel his absence in this mission. This is some footage of the Arbiter just ripping through Flood, the same Flood that you fight in Cortana. And I think this is proof that one of the reasons Cortana is such a hard mission is you don't have the Arbiter by your side. Now, like I said before with the library, just because the mission is difficult doesn't mean it's impossible. With enough practice and enough skill, you can find a way to do this mission very quickly. Moving quickly through this mission is your best option. Because most of the Flood's combat cycles are very slow, you can outrun them fairly easily if you know what you're doing. A true speedrun of this mission calls for very little engagement with Flood. In fact, you can get through most of this mission without engaging any of the Flood forms. You can just run right past them. But trying to complete this mission by avoiding all the Flood and just trying to run through isn't always a foolproof strategy. I know I make it sound easy, but it's not. Like any good Flood mission, this mission is designed to give the Flood the ability to overwhelm you, and just because you think you can run by without a scratch on your head, it doesn't mean you always will. The diversity, inconsistency, and outright randomness of the Flood in this mission make it one of the hardest Halo missions of all time. But now it's time to move to the hardest mission, the one that we can definitively say is the hardest Halo mission of all time.
is that?
I am a monument to all your sins.
Relax. I'd rather not piss this thing off.
Demon. This one is machine and nerve, and has its mind concluded. This one is but flesh and faith, and is the more deluded.
Kill me or release me, parasite. But do not waste my time with talk.
There is much talk, and I have listened through rock and metal and time. Now I shall talk, and you shall listen.
Gravemind, the 10th mission in Halo 2, is definitively the hardest mission across all of the Halo games. And while this video is about some of the hardest missions across all of the Halo games, Gravemind definitely sets itself apart. This is the most grueling, frustrating, relentless, and difficult mission in all of Halo. And if you have ever tried to play this mission through on Legendary, you know exactly why. For starters, Halo 2 is easily one of the most difficult Halo campaigns to play through on Legendary. The enemies in Halo 2 do an insane amount of damage, have an incredibly high amount of health, can sniff you out like a bloodhound, and almost never miss when they're shooting at you. All the while, Master Chief in Halo 2 on Legendary is probably one of the weakest versions of the Chief. This mission puts your skill to the test. You have to fight the Halo 2 brutes, which are easily the strongest brutes across all of the Halo games. I've actually made a whole video on that, you should go check it out. But every enemy that you fight in Gravemind seems to have the upper hand on you due to the randomness of Halo 2 and tricky spawns. Some of the trickiest spawns are in the jail cell room. This is one of the most infamous sections across all of Halo. It's one of the hardest for sure. For starters, sometimes when you drop down, these two brutes and everything else in the room will aggro you and you'll instantly die. Interestingly, the most consistent strategy is just to jump off. If you're going to try and play Halo 2, suicide is probably your best option, but in this scenario, we're just jumping off to get to a better level. The whole point of this section is you're supposed to rescue Marines that are locked in jail cells. The location of the jail cells are the only thing that stays consistent in this section of the mission. All the other aspects of this mission, namely the spawns, are completely random. Brutes, jackals, grunts, they're going to spawn above, below, and behind you, and it makes this section insanely difficult. You constantly have to be thinking about where the next engagement is going to be, looking out for brute shots and carbines and all of these things that can easily kill you in Halo 2. Sure, like any other mission in Halo, there are ways that you can get around some of these tricky spawns and the difficult enemies. In the first room of Halo 2 Gravemind, when you're standing in this exact spot, you can skip some of the waves that you have to fight, making this room a little bit easier. Knowing the patterns of how the enemies move and where the enemies are going to definitively spawn can also help you to know certain routes. For instance, in this room, which is normally very difficult, if you kill the jackal on the left, drop down and hide in this exact spot, you can skip all of the enemies in this room. In these sections, when you have to normally fight through tons of brutes and elites fighting each other, you can just jump up on the rafters. For this mission, it is imperative that you know the spawns and routes and behaviors of enemies in order to get through it efficiently. But even if you know everything that there is about this mission, there is still a good chance that you are going to get killed. Interestingly, every time you play a Halo mission, there are always some aspects of it that are totally random. I'll give you an example here. Assassinating the brute in this room will then in turn despawn brutes spawning in the next room. But all of this is random. Sometimes you're going to have to fight the brute in the first room, which means you're not going to be able to despawn the brutes in the second room, which means you're just going to have to fight a ton of brutes. And we already know that the brutes on Legendary and Halo 2 are some of the strongest enemies that you're ever going to fight across all the Halo games. The inconsistency in Halo 2 Gravemind is outlined by the top 10 world record runs for Halo 2 Gravemind. The fastest Halo 2 Gravemind run, at least at the time that this video was uploaded, is held by Nadeshot's Cat. He did Gravemind in 10 minutes and 48 seconds. But right now, the guy that has the 10th fastest time in the world is at 20 minutes and 8 seconds. This difference in time, even in the upper echelon of Halo play, is a monument to how difficult Gravemind is. I already talked about some tips and tricks that you can use to get past Gravemind a little bit easier, but those tips and tricks are insanely difficult to pull off and require a lot of just random luck. Yes, on Halo 2 Gravemind, there are strategies that you can use even on Legendary to make the mission a little bit easier. But even knowing all of those strategies will never help you for the relentlessness of Halo 2. For this and all of my other reasons, I can definitively say that Halo 2 Gravemind is the hardest Halo mission of all time. I think at the end of the day, all of this information is 100% subjective. You may be great at Gravemind, great at the library, or great at Cortana, but that doesn't take away the difficulty of these missions. I set out to talk about the hardest missions across all of the Halo games, and instead of doing a top 5 or a top 10, I decided to do just the top 3, and I think this is the most definitive list of the hardest missions. If I did a video on the top 10 hardest Halo missions, I would have to add 7 more missions to my list, and that in and of itself would overshadow the greatness of the 3 missions that I talked about in this video. Of course, people have vastly different opinions on the internet, and I want you to voice yours. Comment down below what missions you think are the hardest in all of the Halo games. If I didn't mention it in this one, comment down below. And I want to take this time to thank the sponsor of this video, Audible. If you click the link in the description, you can get a free 30-day trial of Audible. It is an audiobook service that allows you to listen to audiobooks every single month. And of course, all of the Halo lore novels, which detail all of Halo's expanded lore, are on Audible. I recommend Contact Harvest. It's one of the best ones for just getting into Halo lore. And you can keep that audiobook, Contact Harvest, forever, even if you cancel. So you have nothing to lose. Go down to the link in the description and get started with your free 30-day trial of Audible today. I make tons of Halo content that you will definitely enjoy. On my channel, there are hundreds of analytical Halo videos that you can watch right now. But to make sure you don't miss any future videos, make sure you subscribe to my channel right now. If you click the LTN logo on the left, right next to Master Chief's thumb, you can subscribe to my channel now. And if you click the thumbnail on the right, that will take you to a video in which I explain some of the coolest items in the game inspired by the actual Halo community. My name's LukeTheNotable. I want all of you to stay notable, and I will see you in the next video.